Ugh. Well, I always said I'd do this video, and I suppose I've dodged it long enough, so here goes. The Last Jedi is a pretty incredible movie when you think about it. I mean, it does things that really shouldn't be possible. Not only did it turn one of the most beloved and profitable IPs in the history of cinema into a divisive, embarrassing train wreck of biblical proportions, but it also manages to utterly destroy one of the greatest characters of all time, a man who inspired entire generations of kids and adults alike, whose very name has become an integral part of modern pop culture.
It's a trap!
No! I'm talking about Luke Skywalker. Remember him? The guy who blew up the Death Star? The guy who went from an idealistic farm boy to a veteran Jedi over the course of 3 epic movies? The guy who stood up to Emperor Palpatine, turned Darth Vader to the light, and saved the entire galaxy? The sheer depth of Luke's betrayal by The Last Jedi is simultaneously breathtaking and heartbreaking. If someone had told me a year ago what his story arc would be in this movie, I genuinely would have told them to get fucked because they were clearly talking bullshit, but what the hell, I guess time makes fools of us all. This film basically destroys everything that made Luke the iconic hero we all knew and loved. His very essence has been wiped away, the core of his being crushed and demolished, the fire of his accomplishments and struggles and triumphs brutally extinguished. The Last Jedi assassinates Luke Skywalker, both literally and metaphorically. It doesn't just kill him, it destroys the very essence of who he is. The fact they were able to get away with this is utterly baffling. It's a testament to how far this series has fallen, how little regard it has for honouring its own legacy, and how much it's prepared to sacrifice to shove its ridiculous politics down our throats. Before I really get into this, I want to get one thing straight. I'm not against the idea of a movie evolving its characters to reflect the passage of time or different circumstances. Taking a legacy character or a series in new and interesting directions can reinvigorate tired old tropes and cliches, breathing fresh life into something that's grown stale and predictable. That can all be great if it's well thought out and intelligently implemented. But like Thanos says, there has to be balance. In this case, there has to be a balance between the unexpected and the downright unbelievable, and this is where The Last Jedi starts to go off the rails. When you're dealing with a series with such a profound legacy as Star Wars, there has to be respect for what came before. The Force Awakens wasn't a perfect movie by any means, but it still managed to strike this balance of respect and reinvention pretty well. It set up an exciting new storyline with fresh characters and mysteries, while also solidifying the events of the original trilogy as a legendary time of heroes and villains played out on a galactic scale. When you see it through the eyes of low-level nobodies like Finn and Rey, the key players seemed almost mythological in their achievements. Their heroic battles and sacrifices had been amplified and exaggerated by generations of enthusiastic storytellers. When Han Solo finally returned on screen, it felt triumphant and appropriate. He was older and gruffer, but still vital and compelling. He was still the wily con artist, the skillful pilot, the fearless gunfighter, and the reluctant hero we all remembered. He was having fun doing what he did, and fuck me, getting Harrison Ford to have fun at anything is the Mount Everest of achievements right there. He formed a father-like bond with Rey, and we saw moments of sensitivity and vulnerability beneath the hardened shell. The film had enough respect for the character to give him a chance to shine, to give us a chance to properly reconnect with him, so that his death, when it came, felt genuinely wrenching and painful. The Force Awakens was Han Solo's swan song, and when it became clear that Luke was going to be the focus of The Last Jedi, I was genuinely excited to see what they did with him. The action picks up right where The Force Awakens left off, with Rey holding out Luke's old lightsaber to the Jedi Master, the one he lost during his fight with Vader at the end of Empire Strikes Back. How did he even find that, by the way?
A good question. For another time.
Oh, okay. Anyway, he accepts the weapon and shaking hands, his expression torn between wonder and disbelief at being reunited with such a significant artifact from his past, and for one brief moment it really feels like we're witnessing something poignant and epic, the kind of iconic moment we've been waiting 30 years to see. Luke taking up the mantle of Jedi Master once again, accepting the responsibility of his past, finally living up to his legacy and being the man he was always meant to become. Are you fucking kidding me? Get used to this kind of bullshit, by the way, because it pretty much sets the tone for this movie's entire treatment of Luke for the next 2 hours. every single moment that should feel powerful, important, and significant gets mercilessly squashed, pushed aside, glossed over, or ruined with cheap, lame attempts at humour. His character is so painfully underused and unappreciated, it almost feels like the movie actually resents him for being in it. It's like when you've planned a night out and you half-heartedly invite that weird guy from your office who wears Warhammer 40k t-shirts all the time, because you know he won't accept your invite anyway. Then he fucking shows up and you have to spend the rest of the night trying to think of ways to get rid of the prick. For example, when Luke learns that Rey has inherited the Millennium Falcon from Han Solo, he immediately realizes something's wrong and demands to know where Han is. That's pretty interesting, right? How will Luke react when he finds out his best friend has been murdered by his former apprentice? How will he cope? Will he lash out in anger, vow revenge, or retreat further into despair? Well, your guess is as good as mine, because the fucking scene immediately shifts to some other random bullshit going on at the other end of the galaxy, and the conversation's never revisited. Phew, lucky we didn't get to see that reaction, otherwise we might have felt some kind of sympathy towards Luke. We might have gotten more insight into his character and inner motivations and thoughts. And we can't have that, can we? No, this movie doesn't want us feeling any kind of attachment or sympathy towards this guy at all. I have literally hurt my brain trying to figure out what was going through Rian Johnson's round fucking head when he wrote this script. Why would you skip such an important conversation as this? Why would you rob Luke of such an emotional moment? Why is your head shaped like a fucking soccer ball? The basic gist of the storyline here is that Rey has used that newly recovered star map that Luke left behind in Force Awakens to track him down to a remote island where he's hidden himself away for the past 10 years or so. She wants to enlist his help in the war against the First Order, reform the Jedis, and help her understand and harness her growing Force powers. She needs a mentor to train her, but he's not interested and he tells her to leave. That's it. I mean, that is literally the extent of their interaction in this piece of shit script. Pretty much every conversation they have is just a variation on the same basic theme. She follows him around trying to get his help, and he keeps saying no. The missed opportunities and shocking failures of basic storytelling are so numerous and obvious, it's almost physically painful to watch The Last Jedi. It's like watching your increasingly senile granddad fiddling with the TV remote and hitting literally every button except the one he's looking for. It almost takes a real degree of skill to fuck up such incredible storytelling potential so thoroughly. Whereas Han Solo got to travel the galaxy and take part in one last epic adventure in The Force Awakens, Luke spends the entirety of The Last Jedi on some shitty windswept island in the middle of nowhere, brooding and miserable and frozen by indecision. This is a man broken and hollowed out by past mistakes, which are totally at odds with the damage they've done. A man who has shut himself off from everything and who never truly gets a chance to open up again. There's absolutely no spark of friendship or warmth between him and Rey, and even their conversations are stilted, awkward, and crushingly dull. I've never been a huge fan of Daisy Ridley's acting ability anyway, but she at least had good actors and situations to play off against. But here there's nothing. Luke doesn't want her there, and she doesn't seem to want to be there. For the first 10 minutes he refuses to even speak to her, and when he finally does, it's to ask who she is and what the fuck she's doing there. Pretty standard stuff, right? Wrong. I swear it takes about 5 excruciating minutes of screen time for Rey to stumble out the answer to these most basic questions. It's like watching a turd endlessly circling a drain but never quite going down. Who wrote this dialogue? A fucking preschooler? Eventually, after what seems like 2 fucking ice ages, Luke finally accepts that Rey isn't taking no for an answer, so he agrees to teach her some basic lessons about being a Jedi, and then he'll tell her why they have to come to an end, which frankly makes about as much sense as Donald Trump's Twitter feed, but fuck it, at this point I was so desperate for them to get the ball rolling that I'd pretty much take any scraps the movie was prepared to throw my way. Luke's training doesn't come to much, though there is one slightly amusing scene where he has her close her eyes and he tickles her hand with a long piece of grass, making her believe it's the power of the Force. This is good. This gives a little glimpse of a more light-hearted version of Luke that could have been but never was. Of course, it doesn't last, and soon he's back to being a grumpy old asshole again. And when it finally comes down to it, when we finally get an explanation for Luke's self-imposed isolation, it is one of the most crushingly, brain-meltingly ridiculous backstories I've ever seen in a mainstream movie. The basic gist is that we've been led to believe that Kylo Ren was once a student of Luke's, and that he turned against him, burned down his Jedi temple, and killed everyone involved. Luke, devastated by this loss and blaming himself for it, shut himself away. What we actually learn is that one night, Luke had a vision of Kylo Ren turning to the dark side of the Force. He went to confront him, decided it was best to murder him in his sleep, and drew his lightsaber, only to pussy out at the last moment. Kylo Ren then woke up, saw Luke standing over him, and used the Force to defend himself, knocking Luke out and going on a rampage. Are you fucking kidding me? This is the same man who risked his life to redeem Darth Vader. The same guy who refused the dark side and saved the entire galaxy. This man was willing to murder an adolescent boy just because he might be a danger in the future? This backstory is a fucking abomination. It's a complete contradiction of everything Luke stood for and was supposed to be. Imagine if in Creed 2 we find out that Rocky gets jealous of Adonis Creed's success and smothers him in his sleep at the end of the film. Or imagine if they made a new Karate Kid movie and Daniel LaRusso decided to murder one of his students because he was worried about him joining a different dojo. That would be the same level of all-encompassing retardation that we see here. This isn't redefining a character or subverting our expectations. This is literally changing the very essence of who a character is to suit your own bullshit screenplay. In short, this is the hallmark of lazy, terrible, hackneyed scriptwriting. I am not kidding when I say I've read fan fiction that was better than this shit. Luke is neutered in every way possible by this movie. He doesn't connect with Rey on any meaningful level, he doesn't impart even a scrap of wisdom or knowledge, and he never reasserts himself as the powerful Jedi he once was. A brief physical duel against Rey ends with her as the undisputed victor, completely killing Luke's authority and her potential character arc. It's clear in that moment that he has nothing to teach her, and nothing to contribute to the overall narrative. The endless potential that was poised to explode at the end of The Force Awakens fizzles here but never ignites. The thing that makes this all so galling is that Mark Hamill was clearly on board for this. He was excited to be back playing Luke again, and he deserved his moment in the spotlight. Out of the big three from the original trilogy, Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher had both moved on from Star Wars in their own ways. Ford soon found himself in another iconic franchise and parlayed this into a massive A-list movie career, while Fisher transitioned into smaller roles and largely left Princess Leia behind. Only Mark Hamill stayed behind, working the convention circuit and engaging with fans, too typecast to find major acting roles and too nice to turn his back on the people who gave him his break. He gives it his all in this very thankless role, making the most of his limited screen time, but this dedication to a lost cause makes it all the harder to accept the disservice being done to both the actor and the character he portrays. Hamill's gone on record as saying he was furious at director Rian Johnson when he heard what was planned for Luke, that he disagreed with every creative decision Johnson had made, and seeing how it translated on the screen, I don't blame him one bit. I'm honestly surprised he didn't threaten to boycott the whole thing and walk away. Sitting in the cinema watching all this bullshit unfold, I found myself silently begging for him to get a moment, just a single moment of redemption, a chance to finally show us the powerful, wise Jedi Master he had lost so much to become. But it never happened. His final lightsaber fight against Kylo Ren at the climax of the movie was nothing but a mirage. It was designed to distract and buy time for the others to escape. He's there visually, but he's never allowed to do anything of substance. And really, that's a perfect metaphor for his entire presence in this film. Even one of his most pivotal scenes, where he actually does something on his own initiative and resolves to burn down the Last Jedi temple, had to be accomplished by fucking Force Ghost Yoda of all people. This fucking movie has so little respect for him, he wasn't even allowed to pronounce final verdict over the religion he'd worked so hard to protect and uphold. Luke Skywalker was a hero to an entire generation of moviegoers. Yeah, Han Solo was cooler and Darth Vader was more potent, but Luke was the true heart of Star Wars. His was the journey we followed from idealistic farm boy dreaming of adventure to reluctant warrior and finally to savior of the entire galaxy. The original trilogy built him up, and The Last Jedi finally broke him down. And the thing that makes The Last Jedi so hard to accept is that it's permanent now. No matter how much we might hate it, it can never be unmade. And with Carrie Fisher's passing away, the chance to recapture the old magic has been lost forever. And I, for one, think that is fucking bullshit.